Today, I want to talk to you about fused sentences, how to make sure that you are correctly writing one sentence in your essay and not inadvertently or incorrectly combining it with a second sentence in your essay. A fused sentence occurs when two sentences are incorrectly combined into one sentence, and this happens in one of two ways. One of the more common ways that we see it is a comma splice, and I have a whole video on how to use a comma in your essay, so we're not going to go into that in a lot of detail. You may want to check that one out. The one we're going to focus on in this video is not recognizing the fact that your one sentence is really two sentences. And you don't have a comma in your sentence. You don't have a period, and you don't have anything in your sentence. And you can see that here in the final example on your screen. It was close to sunset. The sun was blinding me through the windshield. There's nothing there. The comma that you see in the sentence above it is just as wrong as this blank space that you see below it. Both are a type of fused sentence, and what we're going to talk about today is how to correct this kind of writing. Once you've identified that you have two sentences that you've kind of forced into one sentence, how do you fix those sentences? And the first piece of advice that I would give you is to recognize that two sentences written correctly are better than one sentence written incorrectly. Sometimes students have very short sentences and they want to write longer sentences, so they just start taking periods out of their essay and pretending those two sentences are one. That's not the correct way to do things. It really is better to have two short sentences that are correctly punctuated, that are well worded, than it is to have one big sentence that's missing a glaring punctuation mark. The next thing I would tell you is to recognize that the comma and the period are two different pieces of punctuation and they cannot be used in the same way. And you may want to check out my video on commas. We go into a lot of detail on when you should be using a comma and when you should be using a period. There are some times, though, however, where you're going to be needing that comma to help you out in fixing your fused sentence. And the first way that you would do that is to use a comma and a coordinating conjunction to make the two sentences one sentence. You see here our example sentence that we've been working with in this video. It was close to sunset. The sun was blinding me through the windshield. These are two sentences. So how do I put them together? Sometimes the easiest way is to just put in that comma after sunset and then the appropriate coordinating conjunction after the comma. Coordinating conjunctions are words like for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. Just make sure you use them with a comma. If you just use the conjunction, you still have a mistake on your hands. The next way to fix a fused sentence is to use a semicolon. Um, there are some things that you're going to want to consider when you use the semicolon. There are three rules that you have to follow. Rule number one is there must be a sentence on either side of the semicolon. So right before you put in a semicolon, check the sentence in front of it, make sure it really is a sentence. Check the sentence behind it, make sure it really is a sentence. If one of those is a dependent clause or a fragment of some kind, you're not going to be able to use the semicolon to help you out here. The second thing that you have to establish is those two sentences must be talking about the same idea. Okay? Whatever you're talking about on the left of the semicolon has to be expounded or explained on the right side of the semicolon. So if you don't have two sentences and you don't have a relationship between those two sentences, you cannot use a semicolon. Both of these rules must be true for you to consider using a semicolon. And then as you can see, you're going to put the semicolon right in between where those sentences go. It was close to sunset, semicolon, the sun was blinding me through the windshield. Usually what I recommend to students is that we just rewrite this sentence. Um, Sometimes we bring the back of the sentence to the front of the sentence. Sometimes we move the front to the middle. There's all kinds of different ways that you can do this. But sometimes, especially when you're dealing with simple sentences, is just take some of those elements from both and find a way to correctly combine them into one. Your number one defense in finding a fused sentence is to read your paper out loud. If your chest starts to hurt or if you're having problems breathing, chances are you have fused a lot of your sentences and you need to go back and look. Do I need to put a period in here to separate sentences? Or do I need to use some of those comma rules that I talk about in my comma video because you have a lot of dependent clauses working with your independent clauses? If you have any questions or need additional help with fused sentences, feel free to send me an email or stop by my office during the hours that are listed on your syllabus. You can also head down to the library and talk with our tutors down there. If you're an online student, feel free to check out Purdue's grammar website. It's one of the best.